Waiting for my man, Drushi. How's everybody doing today? It has been a very eventful week. Lots going on. Lots of OIPs. Lots of treasury stuff. Yo, yo, yo.
Ooh, is this a community call?
No, sir. It's a cOHMmunity call.
Oh, that's true. cOHMmunity for our economy.
Economies.
So let me copy the link. I'm going to drop an announcement to let people know we're live.
Do it.
Goonies. We are live.
So, Drew, did you get into Odyssey this round?
I did not. I was sitting at my dining table with my kids, and I was eating. And about 3 minutes past the hour, and I looked at my phone, and I'm like, "Hey, if I go grab a piece of paper and a marker, will one of you kids draw me a boat with this, this, and that?" By the time I'm done explaining it, I click on the Airtable, and it's like, done. I'm like,
completed. Yeah, I was able to get it. No, I don't think I was able to get it this time, but I liked the new prompt of the Cyclops. I'll post my Cyclops later on Twitter. Pretty cute.
Join the discussion over in. Sorry, let me get this announced out real quick. Copy.
Z.
Ooh, Z's gonna sing for us today. He's been prepping.
And he
left.
He's got Heelys. I think he wanted to show off his Heely tricks as well.
Ooh.
But he asked if I could be the only one to talk on this call. So,
are we gonna get lucky and score anyone from policy?
I don't know. We might have to tackle this all on our own.
Oh no!
Big stuff going on this week, though.
Huge.
And I would be very, very down to open up and talk about some of it, but I want to just let everybody stream in first. Oh, yeah. I am down to clown.
Let me jump over here. Oh, there's Z.
We're doing inverted marketing right now, but by the way, guys, this is...
Yeah, we want you to leave.
Drew, I was saying you could have just sent a selfie instead of the Cyclops.
Oh. Smacked. Good one. That was a good one.
Let's see. So pull up some tabs here. Let's take a look at, man, we need Discord to add screen share to stages. Right. It's ridiculous.
I want to present to you people.
It's really messed up. Yeah, we got a pretty good amount on here. 70. It's about the average.
I'm happy. We can kick it. Ooh, where do we even start?
Active snapshots. How about there?
Yeah, that's a good one. So we have...
Or I guess we could talk about the one that closed successfully. Whitelist of Faye as a Treasury Reserve asset. Pretty exciting.
Yes, definitely. More diverse the Treasury, more decentralized Olympus becomes. In a sense, only if we're adding like decentralized assets to it, right? But I love the Fae guys. Tribe Turbo is also coming up. That's is that currently being voted on? Or?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's winning by a large margin of nearly 250,000 ohm.
Yeah, it's turbo time. There's I think You Should Leave. That's such a good show. But does anybody remember the 90s Arnold Schwarzenegger movie? It's a Christmas movie. What's it called, dude? I can't remember. But the action figure is Turbo Man. And I always think of that. Yeah, it's turbo time. There you go. Yeah, I'm really excited to see some Fae come into the treasury. I'm excited to see, a tighter partnership between us and them. And yeah, Tribe Turbo is gonna turbocharge some of our assets.
It's awesome. Do you know much about it? I'm not a big Rari Fae guy, so I don't really know too much about Tribe Turbo.
A little bit. Surface level, the idea is basically you've got, supported collateral types, and Olympus has been whitelisted as a protocol to be able to use this, but certain collateral types can borrow or issue Fae at 0% interest, which is pretty good. I would say.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Very decent. Then that can be, borrowed. The borrowed Fae can just be like deposited into different yield strategies. For us, it basically means we're going to be using like our geome because we're whitelisted as collateral to borrow the Fae, and that's why we had to do the pilot deposit. And then we can put that Fae in the Fae pool, but we're borrowing at a 0% fee, so we're just we're outrunning the APR.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. As long as geome doesn't go to, don't say it. See.
Sorry, I just had to go yell at my kids. I'm like, I'm on a community call.
I'm saving the price, kids.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to talk about price. When liquidity on AP wine bleeds me familia. I don't know if you guys are familiar with incurred debt. We are going to probably deploy some partners pretty soon for that project. Would love AP wine to be part of that project. Because if we can get some for the PDT, if we can get some just for the AP wine pool, either or. Also, AP wine is a tokamak, has a tokamak reactor, so we can help them out that way. Either or. Let's continue with yield snapshots. I don't even want to touch ribbon. Drew, do you want to touch ribbon?
I mean, it's looking like it's going to not pass. Much to the surprise of some of the most outspoken on it. So, I mean, I think that it's going to be a great opportunity for us to showcase the power of governance to shut down unfavorable proposals. So, I mean, I think it's pretty awesome to see everyone coming out and, so much activity. It was a very heated TAP. So,
are you telling me that if I make a vote to give myself the entire treasury, people won't vote for it?
I mean, you I don't know. It's hard to say. You try to slip it in there. You'd have to have it be a very fast maybe have it end in 12 hours or something. But
12-hour governance vote. Yeah, and Abby Pup had tripped everybody up yesterday by switching around the yes and the no on OIP.
Yeah,
we'll get to later, but he tricked you. I saw a couple people comment. They were like, "Wait, I meant to say yes, but I reflexively clicked no." Yeah, I mean, whatever we decide to go with, whether it's ribbon or something else, I definitely think that having a little bit a little more revenue come in through some of our ETH that we don't activate is a really good thing. And I think this also would use our BTC as well. So
yeah, I mean there's a lot of options out there for ETH, and so there's an enormous amount of options for things that we can do with it, and so like if anyone has any other ideas, it'd be great to share those on the forum, so our team can sort of evaluate them and determine,
100x long position on Tracer.
risk-free 100x 1000x long.
See, what's your idea?
Yeah, I guess I had sort of a question on the general direction. Now that we are moving towards using our treasury more for market operation, how does that play into the treasury team's decisions about what assets to sort of lock into long-term staking things and things like that? Because I suppose we would want most of our assets to be as liquid as possible all the time.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm not going to speak for the treasury team, but what I would probably say is that there will be a bit of an emphasis on getting a lot more liquid assets. We have some things that are locked up for a while. FXS is one of them.
CVX
or CVX is locked up for a while. The FXS I think is on like a 3 or 4 year time lock. So that we're not touching that. But there are some assets which I think we could increase. We have a lot of stables. That's awesome. I think our composition right now is like, I want to say it's like 80% stables, 20% everything else. IMO, I think we could add a lot more ETH to the mix. Now I'm not on the treasury team, you take that with a grain of salt, but I think becoming more liquid to be able to have more flexibility on some of these kind of like more active treasury proposals, definitely not a bad thing. And what else was I going to say?
Yeah, I was trying to find. I don't remember what OIP it is that outlines the composition of how many of the assets that we can deploy. But I think I do know that we're getting our wonderful transparency dashboard soon.
Can't wait for that one.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting, and then we can kind of get a more granular view of what this is going to look like.
I remember what I was going to say. Also, I think that it's something that I was talking in a Twitter DM yesterday with somebody who was questioning. They were like, well, and this is a great question, like with inverse bonds, with range guidance, with forward guidance, how are these treasury operations? How is the treasury not worried about losing a bunch of assets? On the inverse bond side, I think the best way that I can like assure people is that at the current OIP 94 levels of like $200,000 a day, I think we can very healthily sustain that. You got to remember, we pull in, what was the revenue last month? 17 million.
Well, yeah. So I think in the quarter, I think it was like 77 million or something like that.
So we're definitely not slacking on making revenue back, and that will go to one, support the Treasury, but also continue to support these Treasury actions without us, having to risk losing quite a bit. Now, we got to learn something from Bean and from Ichi, these projects that had some broken mechanics or some exploits that are able to be used. And we'll plan around those. But if you notice in the paper, the forward guidance paper, it's clearly defined that if the price were to, I don't know, if the market were to move the target range below the wall, we would, it would be I think it was something like 27 times before we would see any significant drain on the Treasury because of the certain mechanisms they were using to kind of safeguard the wall. So they would let the price do what it had to do, and then enact back again with the moving average. So I'm pretty sure the policy team is well on top of that situation.
Yeah, and that's without taking into account how internal bonds interact with that mechanism. At some point,
exactly,
it becomes
right.
Theoretically impossible.
Right.
Not probably won't become impossible, but it trends towards becoming impossible, breaking the walls.
It would become unlikely, and what was the meme the other day? Someone was saying you don't want to fight the Treasury. The Treasury wants to throw hands. I wouldn't want to fight the Treasury. So
I actually have, during this week, we were sort of, until these new OIPs dropped, we were tracking some of the frequent questions that were asked. So the first one, actually, you covered, Shreddy. The first one was, it needs to be covered in depth, how the inverse bonds do not eat up the Treasury.
Mm.
The second was, there is this confusion where we want people to have all the data, but we also don't want people to fixate on things like maybe backing or RFV or APY or whatnot, right? So one question was, what would be the top 3 metrics you would recommend someone evaluating OHM as an investment to focus on beyond the overarching goal that people should be investing in this for its potential to actually become the reserve currency? But what would be the top 3 metrics? Both of you can maybe chime in.
Yeah, I got to think about it. Drew, do you want to take a crack at it?
Yeah, I mean, I have definitely made some recommendations around, pulling some of the values that we show at the top level, right? Because it's oftentimes our dashboard will just be information overload. And so we still want those values to be available for the person who's interested, right? You have some crypto investors that are very interested in really diving into those details. And so before, you actually had to jump over and go look in Dune, and you had to hunt around for all of this information. And now we have a lot of that, all that wealth of information within the dashboard. But at the high level, we show liquid backing per ohm, for instance. That's a low importance metric, but it's one that the uninformed individual, when they see it, it seems alarming to them, right? We could just show liquid backing per geohm there. And then there's just there's certain things showing the circulating supply as opposed to the total supply, which just causes people to have questions, right? And it's why do we even have to show that information there? But yeah, I mean, in terms of what are important metrics, I think it's a lot of the stuff that we highlight, on our posts that we do on Twitter, like bond sales, bond revenue, just overall protocol revenue, which you can find in the dashboard. There's the total revenue. I think that those are very important things for like newcomers to see, to be able to go and see that, revenue per month of like 15.4 million. A lot of those metrics are super important there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else I have to add.
For me, I really like change in market cap versus change in treasury. I think there should be a healthy relationship there. Right now, it is, at parity, maybe we'll say, especially today. But, you want to see, the thing about us is that, we have such a strong treasury that our market cap can be, I guess, it's okay that it's under right now, but it's seriously undervalued. So I think I like to use that as a measure of overall like network health. Right now, I also like.
Look who we got up here.
Who do we have? Oh, we have the pup himself.
It's the dog, GM.
It's the dog. How's it going?
Good. How's everybody going?
Doing good. Just talking about some of my favorite metrics to watch besides, APY, etc. I really like market cap versus treasury. Like to check that out. Daily revenue, always bullish. Today we're at $500,000. And then it's a tough one. I wasn't really looking while while Drushi was talking, but
what about Abby? What
are your three? Or even if it's not three, what do you watch for network health?
For network health, that's actually really interesting. That's a really interesting one, and one that I think we tried to incorporate at least partially into like the treasury dash. So there's quite a few metrics on there that I find really nice. Although it's been brought up a couple times by some people, and I tend to agree that I'd like to see some more metrics around like genome. So like genome backing and stuff like that too, because I think a lot of it's pretty salient, I think, in people's minds. Like when you hold genome, like you want to see like things in relation to that. As far as treasury metrics go, I think as far as like pricing things go, obviously ohm being a unit of account, like you want to see that. But for like your metrics in terms of what you're holding, I think that's kind of interesting for that. There's also, I don't know if you guys talked about the Olympus impact factor, which is
Yes.
Did you guys already talk about it?
No. But that's a good one.
Yeah, so it's basically just I would consider it to be a overall grade based on a scorecard of different metrics around the protocol. So I kind of want to dig something up for that. Just I might take a minute to do that and see just like the list of stuff that's on there. But I think we're actually like talking about that as far as using that as like a publicized like treasury health metric there. And it's essentially just like taking the combination of, I think, like a lot of important metrics that you guys have already talked about, and kind of amalgamating them all into like a general health of like the protocol and the ecosystem. So one thing which I don't remember hearing, but it's around like the size of the ecosystem in terms of, I guess, like, so how many holders do we have? That's always good. But like which protocol treasuries are actually using ohm in some way? Maybe less, like a probably more immediate case is probably just which ones are holding ohm, like as a unit of like a reserve for them. That's big, right? In terms of being a reserve currency, like people got hold you in reserve. So I would say that would be like a big one to, like, I guess, specifically call out from the Olympus impact factor that I will kind of post to the chat in a minute. But yeah, I'd say honestly, like that's probably the top one. I think I've arrived talking it out.
I'm excited for Mint and Sync and Incredet to come out so we can have like a little bit of expansion of liquidity between different trading pairs. I think that metric will be really cool to see as well. I don't wondering how we'll plug that in, but that could be a cool impact factor addition.
Yeah, totally. And if things work out the way that I would expect them to, you would imagine to see like a measurable uptick in that factor once wider adoption of Mint and Sync and Incredet kind of come to be. Because did you guys already shill the podcast that Colton made yet? Because that's a really good one.
No.
Yeah. He made a podcast yesterday, or it was posted yesterday, anyways, with some of our friends, which y'all may have seen around the DAO. Zeus, of course, Indigo, and Glue Eater. So those fellows went on to his podcast and talked a lot about these things. So definitely, give that a shout out too.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Who is
I see a question here in the chat. Abby, you might be able to expand upon this. Can you give a TLDR on the Mint and Sync if you're familiar?
I'm somewhat familiar. Yes, I helped make the proposal for that with Zeus. So I guess the TLDR is two kind of main reasons for Mint and Sync to become a thing. Number one is that the own side of liquidity in our pools should match the growth rate of the market. So what I mean to say is we want to try to make sure that the amount of ohm, like the growth of ohm in the pools, is able to keep up with the growth of like the ohm supply. And the reason for that is that as the number of tokens in your supply goes up, that means that there's more tokens able to like interact with the pools. And it's not just our pools, it can be like any given pool, which I'll get to in a second. But I guess like the point of that is that we need to retain, it's best for that not to get that power in those pools not to get diluted. So the Mint and Sync functionality matches as best it can anyways the growth rate of the staking rewards by minting some ohm directly into those pools and syncing it with the pools. So in effect, it kind of matches the staking supply. That's kind of like the number one important thing, I guess, from a very technical standpoint. It's probably like a little dry, hard to understand. But the second point is, I think, what gets me more excited than the first is that we can imagine to have some pools that anyone can create with ohm. So their own token, they want to pair against ohm, but it's right now not in their best interest to do that because you lose out on your staking rewards for doing so, right? And honestly, like if you look about it like the same way, if you're providing LP or if you're locking your token away, both are pretty liquid in terms of you being able to like remove your LP or unstake and then like do other things with your own. So I see it as like very similar functions for the protocol. So in my opinion anyways, like, you should be able to access those rewards too. And what that does is it removes your cost of capital for supplying LP to own any other given token, right? It doesn't have to be a protocol owned like tokens like olympusdao or olympus or whatever. It can be olympusdft, it can be whatever else. And that's super powerful, like to the point of like breaking down the barriers for individuals or protocols to like hold ohm in reserve. One of those is being able to pair against it with their own token. So the Mint and Sync functionality can be used as a very, very powerful tool for allowing people to like not have like a prohibitive cost of capital in terms of LPing with their own. That was not exactly a TLDR, but that's
no, it's good. And then like kind of similar, but like with incurred debt, it's kind of somewhat similar, right? But you get like governance ability.
So
yeah, incurred debt's still kind of in process, and like that's kind of where I see the value add of incurred debt is that it's able to retain the governance, like your governance power. That like the concept and those two playing together nicely, I think is still kind of under development.
Mhm.
The idea, of course, is to make them separate and distinct and like functions that don't cannibalize off each other in terms of like, yeah, both technically you can get, there's something around staking rewards and whatever else, but maybe one is permissioned and one is more permissionless, something like that. And then of course you have the governance aspect of incurred debt, which allows you to keep it. So it's a little bit more under kind of development from like Zeus and the gang, but yeah, that's kind of where I see the separation being. Both, of course, to get more into like more pockets and more treasuries and everything else. So yeah, they're both working towards the same goal.
There was a follow-up question here. It said, haven't quite wrapped my head around this one. Does it mean that we'd be diluting stakers more?
I think the answer to that, because I'm trying to if it's around the staked supply of ohm, then no. And that was actually like maybe I think probably a bit of a slept on addition to or like component of Zeus's proposal with Mint and Sync. I'm assuming you're talking about Mint and Sync. Mm-hmm. There is a component of the Mint and Sync which requires us to change the way that we mint rewards based on stake supply and not like just total supply, which is done right now. So right now we take into account all the ohm into existence when we like rebase and like increase the amount of supply that we have. In the future, we are proposing in OIP 93 to change that definition to only take into account the stake supply. So if you have 10 ohm in stake supply and you rebase 1%, that's 0.1 ohm that's getting increased every 8 hours, and it doesn't matter if someone else has 10 ohm in there too. Your supply is still only getting rebased based on the reward rate as a function of stake supply. So that's a very technical and roundabout way of saying that because we will change the way that we mint based off of stake supply, that you won't necessarily get like a lower amount of ohm per rebase just because someone else is rebasing too.
Okay, cool. So that's probably what you meant 2 days ago on the forum when you asked if it's like circulating supply as defined on the staking distributor contract, or is only stake supply taken into account? And then Zeus said yes. So
yeah, for sure. So like I use circulating supply to mean like the amount of ohm that is not in the DAO, and that's typically what I've seen in like other definitions too. But it's a very like technical definition in that Solidity contract to mean like circulating supply of like staked ohm. So I just wanted to make sure that was very clear in the proposal that we really are talking about stake supply.
And can you confirm that Zeus did return your DM?
He did. That was he answered in DM. Yes, hello. It is
because you can trust the founder. You can trust him.
I tend to. Yeah.
And then also there was a little like discrepancy in that OIP between the options that were presented. There was the option to implement with no change to the reward I can't ever say reward rate. And the implementation with a change to the reward rate, which is I think actually a little different than people were saying. No change actually means it will change to a lower reward rate, and change means that it will stay the same, or was that?
So the way that it's been worded is no change to the reward rate, which means change to APY. So if you care about the inflation rate of like the system, then no change to the reward rate means that like the total emissions of the system will stay the same. But if you say change reward rate to like change the reward rate, then your APY stays the same. So it's just a bit of an inverse thinking. If you're thinking about APY right now and you want APY to stay the same, then you want to change the reward rate. If you don't care about if you care more about the reward rate in terms of like the total emissions of the system, how much ohm we give out, then your answer should be don't change the reward rate.
Yeah. And then that also plays a little bit into this OIP 85, which had gone back, which had been amended and has come back now. I think Zeus had suggested that instead of that going through, it would be better to implement the no change to reward rate to reduce the APY, but have the same implement the mint and sync with no change to the reward rate. So keeping that lower, effectively, accomplishing what that OIP set out to do.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point. I think the way that I've been kind of personally thinking about the OIP, what did you say was OIP 85? We have
the one that lowers reward rate when reserve bonds are turned off, right?
Yeah. So when reserve bonds are turned off, or which is the amendment to the original OIP, or if we have inverse bonds turned on, so mutually exclusive, either or, then we reduce the reward rate to the bottom of the current band. So, if we did, I think you're right. If we did both, right? So if we enacted that and lowered it to the bottom of the current tier, and then also enacted the OIP 93 with the don't change reward rate, so essentially reducing APY, then we would kind of do both. It would be like a kind of a double whammy for APY. So you'd see, I think it would be like around like 200 and like 2 to 300%, maybe. Don't quote me on it because I haven't redone the math like today or in the past few days. But that's what you'd see, right? It was my guess around 2 to 300% APY. If we didn't change APY, of course, it would stay at 1,000, and then or right around there, I guess, and then like go to the bottom of the tier to like whatever that is. So personal opinion time, I suppose. I'll go first, and then I want you two to answer it too. See what your thoughts are.
Do it.
My personal opinion is that essentially it's been unchanged since we've talked about like all the reward rate reductions. Is that each time you do that, you make it easier to like make partnerships happen and make it more attractive for institutional investors to come in, because it becomes more reasonable for them, and like the cost of capital goes down for holding it versus for staking. I think a decent chunk of that is kind of eliminated with the mint and sync functionality itself, which is what we talked about before. So like the final component kind of lies around what your expected growth rate of the ecosystem is, which is one that I know that Zeus has hit on before, but I do want to hit on again here specifically, is if you think that the growth rate of like the ecosystem will 10x in a year, then you would expect reward like the APY or the inflation of ohm to go up also by 10x if you're looking at kind of like a constant price function. So kind of with that in mind, I think it's best to have a lower inflation and be surprised with kind of like increased price from that. and still work hard to increase the like size of the ecosystem, and don't like just kill rewards, like still fulfill the function of the rewards, which is to increase the supply and get more tokens into more hands and everything like that, but in a reasonable, kind of well-balanced way. And so, like, personal opinion, again, time is like, it feels right to be around like 400 to 500% right now for the inflation rate.
I was in the same boat when 85 came up. I thought it made a lot of sense, especially the way we were trending. And that we were emitting so much, but our backing, the one thing that I was watching was the liquid backing continuously eroding down and saying, this can't be, our not even taking price into consideration, but just the difference between the two kept growing larger and larger. And yeah, I agree that it's easier for, if we call it back, it's easier for us to expand the ecosystem, get more network partners, more institutional investors who are, going to have an easier time swallowing it. And then, like you said, I think people would be well surprised in a long time from now. Especially, I think everybody forgets that this stuff compounds, and it's I don't know. I agree that I think it should be cut back. I would even argue that closer to like 100, 200. I would be okay with the double reduction.
Yeah, everyone.
I love my own, but
yeah, everyone listening right now is like,
everybody's trying to mute me every month.
Yeah. Yeah, but my passive income, CML says.
What if it was active?
Yeah, active income. I'm down for that. But yeah, Notch. I don't know if he's in the audience here, but he gave a very compelling case one time for for dropping it to the double digits. It might be a little premature for that, but I feel like we're definitely getting there.
So everybody go DM Notch and ask him why.
Let's see, is he in here?
He was before, but I think he
left.
What's the question that is being tagged here? Can you explain the proposals to outsource market making to a third party in relation to CEXs? I thought being the market maker was one of OHM's primary revenues. Which one is this in relation to?
I don't remember what number it was, but we do have a centralized exchange, like where we were going to work with GSR. I think that there were some legal issues that were being worked on there that kind of put that on hold. And then also, I think the commitment outlined within that proposal was something like $25 million of or something like that, which like today would be like an obscene amount of versus what it was when it was proposed and accepted. So I think we would probably need some sort of amendment there. But I think it was largely waiting on some legal wrapper for the DAO to be able to like countersign agreements and stuff.
Okay, I cannot get past this. We all need to try to say reward rate 3 times fast.
Reward rate. Yeah, I can't.
All right, I'll try. Here we go.
Try it.
Reward rate.
Yeah, that was good.
But I made it through 2.
Reward rate. Yeah. Did I mess up?
That was pretty good. If you can say it 3 times fast, then we go to 100,000% again.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Just for a day. Just for
one rebase. Just one rebase. Listen, one rebase. That's all I ask.
How much would that be on the 382,000 ohm bag? That would be insane.
Hey,
More than 1 ohm.
More than
that's
one.
my bag.
Imagine.
All right. Well, next time we'll do it. If there was an Olympic Games for Olympus, this would be one of them.
When?
Ooh, when Olympic Games, and it's a gaming tournament.
Big brains over here, my guy.
Nudge, nudge, nudge.
True.
Is there anybody in the? I saw a hand up before. We can take some questions. I mean, we've been taking chat questions, but if anybody wants to hop up, I'd love to hear from some audience members.
Before you speak, though, you have to say reward rate 3 times fast.
Ooh, okay. Memeplex has his hand up, so we're about to get some really deep character references, and he's gonna give us some really in-depth stuff here. So make sure you're paying attention. All right. Memeplex about to hit us with some.
What's
some
up?
good stuff. What's up?
There's a lot of pressure. Reward rate.
Oh, okay. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Hold on one sec. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand more of the philosophy around the market making. I saw the Wintermute and GSR proposals, but I only saw the main, superset proposal, which said that hiring a market maker was on the table. So I haven't gotten a chance to go through the individual proposals yet, and it sounds like they may be out of date with the legal blocks in the way. But correct me if I'm wrong, or if it's just like the market making is a subset for this particular use case with CEXs or something, and that's something that OHM doesn't want to do or can't do effectively. But I thought market making was pretty much primary revenue driver right now. So I was like, why would you outsource the core competency?
I don't know if I can speak on this.
Yeah. Well, I think, if we go back to the OIP, which I think I could probably find it by searching for a keyword here. Let me look. Wintermute was something that was mentioned in that one. Market making proposal from Wintermute. Hire a market OIP 60. So I'll drop this link in the chat. You can kind of read through some of the thoughts on that. But that I do remember some people discussing that that very question. So if you want to get some more in-depth answer from the people who had answered that back then, but I think just from like a high level, from my vague recollection of what was discussed, is that it was more about just the opportunity for sort of like broad visibility across like centralized exchanges. I had suggested that instead of market making with OHM, we market make with GOHM, which is, I'll link that as well right here. Wintermute had put together a proposal to market make with GOHM, so then we didn't have to focus on centralized exchanges that would have to support like native staking. And let's see, Glue, using a market maker is often a prerequisite for listing on a centralized exchange, which is important for access. It won't remove our revenue, but will likely increase volume.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely a new audience. It's not exclusionary, but how do you determine that it won't remove revenue? Because I just wonder, like, I think everybody wants to bring more users into the ecosystem, and centralized exchanges are definitely a way to do that. And there are some barriers to entry, like if I expose someone to OHM, the plus side is that you're getting them used to interacting with the DApp and staking and unstaking and so on. But there's also like quite a lot of narrative confusion to like a newbie and trying to explain this to them, and then trying to endorse like a relatively sophisticated DeFi project when people can just buy JPEGs, right? So, so I think I probably would kind of align with you on terms of, going for the staked OHM or GOHM. maybe GOHM because they don't have additional tax considerations if they're U.S. citizens. In terms of trading on the CEX, I'm just like, how do you guys make that distinction of like, this won't be a revenue replacement or this won't affect revenue negatively?
Yeah. So,
and as a decentralized reserve currency, like, how do you determine how much can be traded on the CEXs without starting to maybe impinge on the benefit of OHM itself for DeFi?
Yeah, Abby, I think I saw you unmute there for a second.
I did. There were a lot of questions in there, so I'm just going to kind of tackle them randomly with no strategy in mind. So I think one of the first things that you had pointed out, or one of the things that struck me when you pointed it out, was around the level of sophistication required for someone to even enter into like the OHM ecosystem right now. Not only sophistication in terms of like understanding what like a wallet is and what, like how to interact with it and what gas fees are and all that shit, but like also the level of risk that they're willing to take to like deal with the whole like don't share your wallet keys, and like if someone is in the Discord, like don't like they'll never DM you and all this stuff, and like that's a huge barrier to entry right now for not only like Olympus but like any other DeFi token, right? So like I do see that as right now with like where we are in our protocol's journey to be as Glue said, a way to increase volume without impacting our own revenue. Because if you're in DeFi, like the way I see it, you're going to be in like you're actually like a relatively sophisticated like operator within DeFi. You're going to be trading here, and you're not going to be like giving up on like everything that DeFi can afford just to trade on a centralized exchange. So there's like at this point, I would say there's definitely a trade-off that I think is worth it to have for like having like the Olympus currency on like a centralized exchange via a market maker. So like I do see that as a benefit right now. I think once the if we ever
I think if people
go ahead,
well, I think if people are buying, but like a counter, so I don't completely disagree, but just kind of a counter argument. I think if people are buying OHM on a decentralized exchange, then they're not really like growing the actual community economy, so to speak. So if you imagine that, OHM is an effective currency because it has more pairings and maybe there's, community creations, NFTs or whatever that are bought with OHM. And so it becomes a unit of account, medium of exchange, so on. Like they're basically only buying this, store of value with maybe some potential upside. If they're buying on the exchange. So it's like, if there's not a clear path from them to go to onboard through the exchange because it's easier, but then to like start interacting with the OHM community for some reason through like somehow ported through the centralized exchange. And I think maybe Sheeb, even as goofy as it is, has actually had some success there. Then I don't really know like what the advantage is. So I guess in terms of volume, like what does more volume actually add to the community?
So just so I understand what you're saying here is are you kind of saying that anyone who like buys through a decentralized exchange, for example, would theoretically be more likely to be in the Discord and be like part of the community that we have here and on Twitter and stuff like that versus someone who's on a centralized exchange?
Definitely, because I've known people that are on centralized exchanges and the coins never move off of Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, whatever. So you're talking, you could have a 1, 2, 3 year period where that person never actually meaningfully engages with the community because they just bought a token.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I see what you're saying about community, like ecosystem kind of a deal. Okay, so I understand. I thought you were talking about community as in like, you can only join the Discord if you bought through Uniswap or something like that. But that's okay. So I see what you're saying about like interacting with other use cases of OHM that are on on only like a decentralized exchange that like just holding in your Coinbase wallet or your Binance wallet or whatever like cannot necessarily access. So like that's definitely a valid point, right? Like if you're less likely to use the token in a meaningful way, then it kind of dilutes the, you know, some of the purpose of like Ohm as a currency. I mean, that said, like store of value is kind of one of the primary, you know, tenets of Ohm. So you still are getting like, you know, use out of it. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have like mind share outside of DeFi around the token, even in a somewhat limited sense to that, right? Like, of course, it's most ideal to have, you know, in the long term, to have, you know, the full participation within the ecosystem. But I also kind of have a feeling that like centralized exchanges will in the future be more and more increasingly integrated within DeFi anyways. So like long term, I kind of see those 2 points conflicting a little bit there. But you're right. I mean, like it does limit the ability for someone right now to interact with like the rest of DeFi. So the onboarding question is like a real legitimate concern.
Yeah, I think this is like probably a critique that I have with Ohm proposals in general. Like I think when I see the proposal list, I generally think, okay, like this particular building block seems like it's, you know, net positive, but the building blocks like, you know, A plus B plus C, they're almost all done individually, and maybe that's necessary, you know, for the DAO to actually make progress. And I can't comment on that, but sometimes I think like they actually need to be designed, or they need to be like integrated together, and you know, A plus B plus C, as opposed to, you know, A went through, B went through, D went through, we're missing C for a while, you know, F went through, etc. And what I mean by that is basically like, you know, for instance, if it were like kind of going back to this example, but I have other examples in mind, you know, I don't know how much resources it requires and you kind of what the cost of market making is. I mean, I guess like the fact that it's not explained super well in the proposals that I've seen, that, you know, that maybe gives me more cause for concern, but, you know, I think you'd want like a path into the ecosystem from the centralized exchanges, and they may not have like, you know, super clear onboarding into DeFi right now, because they're both barely getting into DeFi. You know, Crypto.com and Coinbase have their own DeFi wallets and so on, but they don't have like kind of clear incentives to get people to move from the centralized exchange. I mean, they might even be anti-incentive for them to move from the centralized exchange to the, you know, to the DeFi landscape. But from Ohm's perspective, I would think that would be, you know, one of your like cultural community impact factors is that, okay, you've onboarded new holders, and you know, maybe the holders are providing some amount of service because they're staking and they're providing liquidity for the protocol. But I mean, at this point, the protocol theoretically has excess liquidity that has to be considered and managed. So you really just want more participants in the community, and then you want the participants in the community to validate, you know, this currency, this reserve currency, or this currency for exchange, and you want the community members to grow and them to be more value additive, and for there to be more opportunities for, you know, permissionless community growth, where people are, you know, creating memes that are then sold in Ohm, and then and people are identifying with that culture and with some aspect of that culture.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, just thanks for putting me up here, but like to your point, Memeplex is like, I know personally a lot of people that are on centralized exchanges that came to DeFi just to purchase Ohm, and they're consuming community content through Agora or through podcasts or through the email service, and that's their way of contributing. But to navigate a Discord for them is just like not something that is intriguing. But there are other elements of the community that live outside of Discord through Twitter and through, you know, podcasts and emails that they're eating up. So I still think the centralized exchange, like long term, you know, is the long term play for where Olympus wants to be. It's just my own personal opinion, but I do see your point.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not disagreeing on the long term vision. I think, you know, and I think Zeus said it, like, it's permissionless. If a centralized exchange wants to buy a ton of tokens, then they can do that. I guess from my holder perspective, I kind of have like two different thoughts. One is like, what's the priority in DAO resources for us to do this, and like what are the costs of hiring this market maker, and will it impact revenue? And if the answer is no, then okay, that's fine. But in terms of timeline, like, does it make sense to actually be moving that forward if there's not really like a proper funnel to go from the centralized exchange into the ecosystem? And then you mentioned, you had centralized exchange users, White Chocolate. You had centralized exchange users who are using DeFi for the first time just to participate in Ohm, because Ohm is exclusively DeFi. So it was exciting enough to onboard them to Ohm. So it's like, it'd be nice to, continue to improve that messaging so that more and more people are attracted to Ohm. You had the same thing with Sheeb, because, Sheeb wasn't listed on centralized exchanges for a little bit, and people were paying, crazy fees to get less money in tokens than the Ethereum fee at the time, which is, not something you want to condone in terms of user behavior for any meaningful period of time. But, what I'm saying is like the hype of the people who were excited about that project was so high that they were willing to go through those barriers in order to, be onboarded. And then they kind of like, what's the term for it? It's almost like a cultural sunk cost fallacy, because they went through more barriers to be onboarded. They probably have like more engagement with the community.
So are you saying that it's like, I guess you're more concerned in the short term of, hey, if this impacts revenue in the short term and we don't see much gain from users being added, are you saying it wouldn't be worth it in the short term and the DAO should consider waiting? Just so I understand where you're like, where you're coming from.
I think so. I don't really have enough information. I was kind of just asking for the information first, and then these guys, no offense, but didn't have the information off the top of the head, which is fine. I don't expect you to memorize everything, but not knowing that information now, that would probably be my take. Yeah. And just an incentivization around like growing the community holistically, where you can, what are your community metrics? I think I need to look at the impact factor dashboard and so on to see all the metrics you guys are tracking, but in more detail. But I think the treasury and the financials, you guys have made a lot of progress on improving the communication info around, but maybe there needs to be more of that focus around the community and what the community roles can be and how people can kind of like self-identify and self-group and then create additive value to the community. And then in order to do that, you need them to, whether it's Twitter or Discord or email or whatever, you needed them to be participating in the community. And I think a lot of centralized exchange users never exit Coinbase, never exit Binance.
Yeah, I sort of feel like, we're kind of looking at doing that with ArcX and the whole Omi score thing, and being able to kind of create different like archetypes of individuals within the community based on like the actions that they take. So like the Omi score was, we kind of put it on pause just a little bit because we're kind of like reorganizing some things, but like to be able to have people have like an Omi score that represents them being involved in governance or involved in bonding or involved in staking, and sort of give them these kind of like character types, I think is kind of some interest to you. But yeah, I think that those are all valid points.
Yeah, Omi score sounds good. I'm kind of imagining that, NFTs and DeFi probably merge for the most part in the foreseeable future. We look at like a Uniswap V3 LP position, you're just holding it as an NFT. Or you look at, was it Alchemex or somebody has like unliquidatable position with the NFT. Anyway, I forget, but effectively like you're representing your financial positions and your community alignment with NFTs. And so I was kind of expecting that you would see, these archetypes that you're mentioning espoused in NFTs, and even potentially like the way that you're acquiring, staking, or if you've, maybe have a boost for, or if you're in a vault, for example, that's a 1-year lockup, and then you have an, Zeus was mentioning like micro communities and having participation, just within vault communities that may be aligned for different incentives than shorter term holders or so on.
Yeah, sure. Hey, so we got 3 other people up here. And we're at about an hour. So I'd like to see if we can get some of their questions. But as always, Memeplex, we appreciate your deep insights and hope that you'll come back to our next one and ask some more.
Okay, thanks, guys. I'll do it.
Thank
Cool.
you, sir.
So, White Chocolate, you were next. I don't know if you wanted to come up and just talk to what Memeplex, or if you had your own question, but you're up.
Yeah, I did have the little comments I made there. No, thanks. Thanks for hosting, and thanks for taking time out of your day to even have me up here. I just wanted to have a quick question on. I was kind of messaging Jason about this, about how some of the future initiatives between like the Walled 3.3 and some of the other new policy stuff between like some of the cross-chain, voting and whatnot, and how we see that kind of working in the future for Olympus, and how we see some of those future products like working together in a unified ecosystem.
So I'm sorry, just for more clarity, voting and forward guidance, or was that the
No,
question?
more specifically, how we see the buying walls that Zeus wrote about in his white paper. If you guys could just give like a TLDR on that, and then how you see that working with future Olympus products.
Yeah, trying to think how to go about that without spilling too much alpha. Well, we've all seen the paper, so essentially, a good example would be to look at Abby Pup's name, but we'll be setting up a series of cushions and walls representing, bid and sell positions that the Treasury can, play a more active role in stabilizing the currency. And I think that's the most important part about it, is it's the stabilization of the currency. How much can I say synergistically there? Abby, what are we allowed to talk about with upcoming things? I guess Zeus talked about Bofides a little bit as well. I think there's also internal bonds can play into this in quite a big way. So when internal bonds come out, people will be holding ohm for longer periods of time, and that means that they're, if they're locked up in these bonds, and of course, there will be a secondary liquid bond market, which is something that we've talked about, since bonds came out. People will be able to get into and out of these positions, but for the most part, there will be a larger incentive to hold ohm and allow it to mature without, trying to break the wall. There's a few other things that go along with that, and I don't think we're quite ready to release some of that information. But what I will say, and this kind of goes back to what Memeplex was talking about, we're building a lot of Legos. Sometimes it's not easy to see how they snap together right away, but rest assured that in the next couple of months, I think you'll see, us kind of like bringing together a lot of the things that we have proposed and passed and turning them into a cohesive and active protocol. I am probably going to say too much if I keep talking.
That's okay. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, you don't. That's totally fine. I'm not looking for the farm, but just to kind of know that stuff like that is in the works is exciting.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. So up next, we brought up Syntronics. You got a question?
Yeah. Hey there. Thanks for bringing me up. And first off, I just want to say that I find all of the economics of this really fascinating, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can. And kind of speaking to what Memeplex was talking about, just onboarding more people, and through all of the other things that you have going on, I'm having a hard time, first of all, figuring out with Olympus Odyssey, Mushrooms, some other ones, how it all connects. And I'm kind of like asking for myself, and also like I'm a high school business teacher, and I'm trying to import all of my knowledge onto them as well, and like introduce them to as many of these things and these concepts as I can. And would it be possible to like, I feel like the NFT space is a great way to introduce people because they're already in that space to what you're doing. How are the things that you've got going on with these other NFT stuffs connected? I know it's kind of a broad question, but it's a little confused in general with all that.
That's an awesome question. And thank you for doing the Lord's work and teaching high school students about the crypto space. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think I'm like one of the few that's doing it, but I'm trying.
Yeah, and it's all about teaching the next generation about the future, what the future of finance will look like within their lives. So I think that's like super cool. As a father of 5, I greatly appreciate that. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's definitely, I think that you touched on an important point, which is that, although NFTs and stuff sort of spin out, or, like the Odyssey NFT ecosystem has sort of spun out of Olympus, I think that ultimately the goal of something like Odyssey will be to educate people about Olympus. Their platform is going to support our token as a unit of exchange. So, I think it's sort of like somewhat of like an education about Ohm. But other than that, I mean, let's see, Shreddy, I know that you're pretty involved with Odyssey. Do you have any insights there?
Well, the great thing is that you're in the right place to be asking these questions. I would also suggest that, if you have these kind of questions, definitely drop them both in the Odyssey Discord and in here. But what I will say is that, DeFi has a certain culture. And I think NFTs are actually quite an important part of that culture. And I will steal something from Live the Life. It's one of my favorite quotes, and it's art is the front end, DeFi is the back end, which is kind of the ethos of Odyssey. So it's taking some of the traditional is such a funny word because we've been around for like a little over a year, but the traditional Olympus tokenomics and kind of like DeFi nuances and imparting them into an NFT space. And I think NFTs are a great way, at least to get people into DeFi in some aspect, get them set up with, your basic stuff, getting a MetaMask wallet, navigating OpenSea, spending money on gas, NFTs are a total joke. Some people may think that, some people don't. But I think you should go and probably talk to some of the guys over in Odyssey. They're gonna have some reward curve and gamification. There will be I don't know if you saw the Genesis Mint was going on yesterday and today, coming out with a certain, there's tiered NFTs, and they will give you, some XP boost for the platform, and we'll be able to use Ohm also to buy NFTs on the platform. So if you were not aware of Odyssey launching, I think that will be very exciting for you to figure out if you're interested in that space. I don't want to go too deep into it right now because I want to get to Ranja's question, but I hope that kind of gave you a little bit more of an understanding.
Yeah, no, definitely. Is there like a connection between, like, if you own one of those NFTs, and will there be like a channel to move money between the NFTs and the Olympus main site, things like that? Is that in the future?
I'm sorry, wait, could you just say that one more time?
Sure. Will there be some kind of a channel? Like if you're involved in the Olympus Odyssey and maybe you've got an NFT or something and you're in that space changing money and doing all that, will there be some kind of a connection in terms of, can I move money from there easily over to the Olympus main site, like to do yield farming or swapping or something like that?
To my knowledge, not exactly. Live the Life or Memetics. Can you tell me in the chat right now if I am incorrect? 1 second.
Hey,
I'm getting my first-hand sources here.
Just real quick. We're about 13 minutes past the hour, and I realized that we're actually cutting into an Agora Spaces on Twitter right now.
Shoot.
Yeah, so we might need to answer this question in the chat and see if we can get folks to head over and listen to that awesome call on Spaces.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's a very good place, I guess, to stop it. And Centronics, if you want to learn more, please reach out to Memetics, Live the Life, Quarkus. They're in the chat now. They'll be in the other chats around. And also join the Odyssey server. You can find that through the portal, which is somewhere at the top, maybe at the bottom. But yeah, so I want to thank everybody for coming out again. Thanks, Abby, for coming up. Ranj, I'm sorry we didn't get to your question. Just drop it in off topic or something, and we'll catch you all. What is it? 2 weeks from now, Drushi, or next week?
yeah, well, we'll play it by ear, but it should be next week actually. So this one was actually randomly placed in the middle, but so I believe we're going to meet back here next week.
Very, very good. Okay. Thank you everybody for coming, and
right.
we'll catch you.
Take care. See ya.